They say Arizona dust storms, haboobs, the locals call them, come fast and blind everything. I learned that the hard way 2 summers ago, driving alone on Highway 387. I'd taken a wrong turn trying to shortcut back to Phoenix and ended up on a desolate 2-lane road cutting through the desert like an old scar. I first saw the wall of dust around 6:45 p.m. A copper haze bleeding into the horizon. It looked slow, like I could outrun it. I was wrong. Within minutes, the air turned gritty, my headlights did nothing but light up a swirl. Then my engine choked, stalled, dead. Just my luck. There were no towns, no gas stations, only a flickering neon sign half swallowed in sand about a quarter-mile ahead. El Cielo Motel. Half its letters were busted, but it was something. I jogged through the growing storm, using my shirt as a mask. By the time I reached the lobby door, the dust was so thick I couldn't see the road anymore. The door creaked open like it hadn't been touched in years. Inside, the air was stale, dry as bone. A thin film of dust covered everything. Desk, armchairs, faded magazines from 1978. A key rack still hung behind the counter. Some keys were missing. I called out, got nothing but silence and the groan of old wood. The place wasn't boarded up, but it felt abandoned, like it had been waiting to be forgotten. I picked room 3 because the key was easy to reach. The room looked like it had once been charming. Floral curtains, twin beds, a dusty Bible on the nightstand. The storm outside howled like a freight train, rattling the windows. That's when I noticed a journal. It was sitting on top of one of the beds, leather-bound, thick, water-stained. Inside were dozens of entries, all written by different hands, all dated years apart. But everyone mentioned the same thing: figures in the storm. Saw them again tonight, just standing out there watching. Don't open the door after dark. They wait for that. If they get inside, you become part of them. I laughed it off at first. Probably some desert ghost story passed around by truckers to spook newcomers. But then, the knocking started. Rhythmic. 4 slow knocks on the door. Not pounding, not desperate, just expectant. I held my breath. Another knock. Closer to the floor this time. I crept to the window, parted the curtain an inch. Nothing but swirling dust and darkness. Then movement. A shape. No, shapes. Barely visible, standing perfectly still in the storm, just beyond the parking lot. My skin went cold. They weren't hiding. They wanted to be seen. I slammed the curtain shut and backed away. The journal slipped from my hands, pages fluttering open. One caught my eye. The writing was messier, more frantic. I made it 3 nights. The others didn't. If you're reading this, stay quiet. Don't move if they're near. The dust carries them. Don't let them smell you. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the bed, knees pulled to my chest, listening to the wind scream. Around 2 a.m., the door handle jiggled. Not aggressively, like someone testing it. Then silence. Then a whisper. I swear I heard it, right outside the door. A low, rasping whisper that didn't sound like any language I knew. It lasted maybe 10 seconds, then faded like breath on glass. At dawn, the storm was still raging. I stepped into the hallway to look for a phone, maybe a radio. That's when I found the second journal, on the floor in front of room 7. Different cover, but same style of entries. Different people, same nightmare. They come with the dust. They leave when it clears, sometimes. I watched one of them move through the wall. You can't outrun them if they mark you. By now, I was half convinced I'd stumbled into some elaborate prank or local legend, but then I found the photo. Tucked into the back cover was a Polaroid. 4 people standing in front of the motel sign, smiling. On the back, someone had written, July 1979, last guests before it closed. I recognized one of them. He was in the first journal. His name was Alan. He'd written 6 entries, the last one barely legible. She let one in. I told her not to. It wore her face. I dropped the photo. Around noon, the wind died. Not gradually, immediately, like someone flipped a switch. I opened the door cautiously. The air outside was dead quiet. The ground coated in dust inches thick. That's when I saw them again. 4 figures standing in the open desert, not moving, not reacting, like statues. One of them wore a red flannel shirt, the same as the guy in the photo. I backed into the room, heart pounding. I wasn't staying another night. The car still wouldn't start, so I walked 20 miles through dead silence until I reached a gas station near Casa Grande. A sheriff picked me up. I told him everything. He didn't laugh. He just nodded slowly and said, El cielo, huh? That place has been closed for over 40 years. Thought they bulldozed it. He looked at me for a long time. You sure you stayed there? I tried to take him back the next day. There was nothing there. Not even a foundation. Just desert. But when the next dust storm rolled in 2 weeks later, I stayed inside my apartment with every window locked because I've seen what rides in that dust. They're not ghosts. They're not people. They remember being people. And they're looking for someone new to become.
The storm started just after 9 p.m. Fat raindrops pelting the old shingles of my childhood home. Thunder rattling the windows like they remembered being touched by wind. I was house-sitting for my parents while they visited my sister in Colorado. Alone, middle of nowhere, just me and the storm. I don't scare easy. I grew up out here. But something about that night made my skin crawl. Maybe it was the wind howling down the chimney. Maybe it was the power flickering out just before 10. Or maybe it was the text message that arrived at 10:17 p.m. No number, just unknown. No words, just a photo. It was a picture of my house, my living room window specifically, taken from outside. It was dark and blurry, but the rain on the glass was unmistakable. I stared at it, confused. My heart thumped once, slow and deep. I responded, "Who is this?" Delivered. No reply. I convinced myself it was wrong number, just someone messing around. But then, at 10:26, I got another one. A different angle, this time, my kitchen window. Closer. The lights inside glowed faintly from the backup battery lamp I'd lit earlier. I could see my own reflection in the window from where I had just walked past minutes before. I stood up slowly and turned toward the kitchen, heart hammering. Nothing, just the faint glow of the lamp, the hum of the storm. I texted again. "I'm calling the police. Stop." No reply. I closed all the curtains, locked every door, though they already were, grabbed the old baseball bat from under the couch. Then, like an idiot, I walked from room to room, flicking my flashlight into the backyard, the driveway, the trees. No footprint in the mud, nothing moving but rain. Then another message. 10:39 p.m., another photo. It was the basement window. Now here's the thing. You can't access the basement window without climbing into the crawl space behind the house. It's narrow, packed with wet leaves and spiders. No one goes back there, not unless they really want to. I was done. I dialed 911. The dispatcher kept me on the line. She asked me to stay calm, to lock myself in my room and wait for officers. She said a unit was about 15 minutes out, but with the roads washed out, it could take longer. I locked myself in the upstairs bedroom and slid the dresser in front of the door. "I'm going to stay on the phone with you, okay?" she said. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. That's when the next photo came in. 10:52 p.m. My bedroom window. Taken from just outside, I screamed. "There's someone outside my window," I told the dispatcher. "He's right outside." "Don't move," she said. The window is second story. No ledge, no porch roof. Just straight siding and 30 feet of wall below it. Nobody could have gotten up here. And yet the photo was real. I turned to the window, my flashlight beam shaking, and saw nothing but the curtains gently shifting from my own breath. Then I noticed something. The curtain was parted slightly, just enough for a camera lens. I backed away. The dispatcher kept talking, her voice steady. "Officers are almost there. Stay put." 10:56 p.m. Another photo. But this one wasn't of the house. It was of me, taken from behind. In the photo, I was standing by the window looking out, just like I had seconds before. But in the background, inside the room, behind my shoulder, was a figure. Blurred, dark, but there, inside. I dropped the phone. I backed into the far corner of the room, clutching the bat like it was a lifeline. "I'm not alone," I whispered. "He's in the house." I didn't hear footsteps, didn't hear breathing, but I felt it. That awful sensation that you're being watched, that something else is in the room with you, just behind your blind spot. I didn't move. The cops showed up 13 minutes later. Sirens blaring, lights splashing across the flooded windows. They searched the house top to bottom. Nothing. No signs of forced entry, no footprints in the mud. The crawl space? Dry, undisturbed. "No one's here," the officer told me gently. "Storm like this, maybe someone's pranking you with old photos. You sure they weren't taken earlier?" I showed him the timestamps. Showed him the last photo, the one with me in it. I watched his face pale a little, but he didn't say anything, just nodded and told me to stay with a friend for the night. I didn't sleep. The next day, I tried to trace the number. The phone company said there was no record of texts at that time, no log, nothing from unknown. They said I never received any messages at all. But I still have them, saved, locked away on the backup drive. And here's the part that still haunts me. The last photo, the one where the figure stood behind me, I looked at it again weeks later, after I'd finally returned to the house in daylight. I zoomed in. The figure wasn't blurry because the photo was bad. It was blurry because it was moving, and its face wasn't a face. It was a perfect copy of mine.
I left Biloxi 3 hours before Hurricane Isaiah made landfall. The radio said it would be a Category 4 by midnight, and I wasn't about to wait it out. I took Highway 49 north until the winds got too violent to keep going. Rain lashed sideways, trees bent like they were bowing to something dark. I pulled off at the first lit-up sign I saw, Red Pine Inn. It wasn't listed on Google Maps, which struck me as odd, but when you're running from a hurricane, you don't ask too many questions. I parked under the sagging carport and ran in through sheets of rain. The front desk was manned by a gray-haired man with a cigarette tucked behind one ear. The lobby smelled like wood polish and mildew. He barely looked up from his old television showing live footage of the storm, chewing up the coast. "You got a room?" I asked, breathless, dripping. He squinted. "We're full, technically." I nodded and turned to leave. He stopped me. "Well, there's one left. It's not ideal." I asked what that meant. He stared a beat too long and said, "It's dry, has power. That's what matters right now." I should have walked out then, but exhaustion and wind had a way of making me say yes when I should have not said yes. He handed me a brass key, not a card key. A key. Room 116. It's in the old wing, left side. Ignore the plastic sheeting. The hallway to room 116 was dim, lit by flickering bulbs. The other doors had towels wedged under them to block wind. Mine had a strip of clear plastic wrap stretched across it, like some kind of seal. I peeled it off and opened the door. The air inside was still. No sound. The rest of the inn groaned under the hurricane winds, but this room, dead silent. Not even the rattle of the storm. That was the first red flag. The room was immaculate, like no one had touched it in years. Bed made tight, no dust, lamp already on. I thought maybe they'd renovated it recently. But when I set my bag down on the armchair, I noticed something under the seat cushion. A small strip of wallpaper, torn and curled. I lifted the cushion and saw that the wall behind it was peeling, as if someone had tried to dig through it. Underneath the wallpaper was old brickwork, rough, scratched brick. Some of the scratches looked like letters. I pulled my hand back fast. "Storm's getting to you," I said out loud. But then came the thudding. At first, I assumed it was a branch hitting the roof, but it was too regular. 3 slow bangs, then silent, then another 2, lower, like fists hitting from inside the walls. I muted the TV and listened. It came again, and again. And then I heard it, a voice, muffled, like someone whispering under a blanket of drywall. "Hello? Hello?" I froze. My mouth went dry. I pressed my ear to the wall. The whisper came again, faint. "It's still here." I stepped back. Then the power cut out. TV dead, lights gone. I stood in total blackness, heart thudding louder than the storm. My phone flashlight barely reached the corners of the room, but I saw movement near the baseboard. A shifting bulge in the wallpaper. Something was behind it, pressing outward. I ran. I flew down the hallway, slammed through the lobby door. The man at the desk was gone. The TV still worked there, powered by a generator, I guess. I looked at the live feed of the hurricane, too dazed to process anything. Then I noticed something odd on the TV screen. A red dot on the radar, right over this motel. And next to it, in a lower ticker, a name scrawled by: Red Pine Inn, site of 1998 evacuation tragedy revisited as Isaiah nears. I read it again. In 1998, Hurricane Beulah forced an inland evacuation. 20 people were crammed into an old converted storm room in this very motel. The door had jammed, flooding cut power. No one got to them in time. They suffocated or drowned. They weren't found for days. It had been room 116, the evacuation room. I stumbled back from the TV and ran outside into the howling rain. Lightning split the sky. The motel looked different from the outside, older. Windows blacked out. Shutters rusted shut. My car, still parked beneath the carport, was covered in a fine layer of plastic wrap, as if sealed. I jumped in and drove. I didn't care about hydroplaning, didn't care about trees in the road. I didn't stop until I reached the Walmart parking lot in Hattiesburg, shaking and soaked. The next morning, when the sun rose over a shattered coast, I looked up Red Pine Inn again. It was on Google Maps now, marked as permanently closed. Closed in 1998. Collapsed during Hurricane Beulah. No structure had stood there for over 20 years.